Good evening. I've got an interesting lad here in front of me. This is Peter Mears, who comes from England but identifies more strongly with Scotland. But Peter is a very, very interesting guy. Peter, tell us what you have been doing for the last 21 months.
For the last 21 months I've been trekking the coastline of the UK, Ireland and Northern Ireland, whilst living outdoors the entire duration. So
you live in a tent?
Less and less. When I originally began I'd use the tent nightly, but the sleeping side is now, the novelty's worn off. It's something I need to get done, so I just seek shelter. If I can keep the rain off, brilliant. If it's wind and rain, yeah, bonus.
Right. So you started off where?
Began at the most northerly tip of the mainland Britain, which is Dunnet Head, just before you get to John O'Groats. And then I've come down the east coast.
So you've come from John O'Groats,
yeah,
and you're heading down, past Geordie land.
Yeah.
You're heading down past, on down to the Wash and down, and you're heading down to London.
Yeah.
And then you're coming across Kent,
yeah,
and you're coming across towards Brighton.
Yeah.
And you're coming across towards Portsmouth and Weymouth.
Yeah.
And then you're going on up
Southwest Coast path, so the sort of Cornwall, Devon, Dorset.
Right. Right.
Then on to Wales, yeah.
And you're coming past Bristol and coming into Wales.
Yeah.
And on around up to Holyhead.
Yeah, and that's where it pauses.
So you pause there.
Yeah.
And what happens there?
The original plan was to do the island of Ireland.
The island of
Ireland, in its entirety.
Ireland.
Yeah, sorry.
Can't understand the accent.
The island of Ireland.
Right.
In its entirety.
Right.
And then do the Isle of Man because of a famous mountain, Snaefell.
Right.
It's termed the Seven Kingdoms: the Kingdom of England, the Kingdom of Scotland, the Kingdom of Wales, the Kingdom of Northern Ireland, the Kingdom of Ireland, the Kingdom of Poseidon for the sea,
right,
and the Kingdom of Heaven for the sky. And that's something you can see on a clear day.
Right.
So I thought that'd be kind of cool to see once I'd at least been in all of them. But
right.
Plans changed slightly as one of the charities I'm raising money for were being awarded some money from a company on the Isle of Man. Coincided with the time I was nearly there. Right. So they asked if I would like to represent them, which was a strange idea. Big business sort of buffet. Right. And just this pretty much a vagabond turning up, yeah, with all these businessmen and things. But it worked out well. I got to meet some awesome people and hopefully represented the charity well. Right. Yeah. So you've done and you've walked around Southern Ireland. Have you? No, so you came across to Dublin? Yeah, I went to Dublin and I had to spend 3 days there waiting for transport to Isle of Man. Right. And then I did the entirety of the Isle of Man. You walked around the Isle of Man, yeah, right? Did the coastline of that plus through the middle. Right. Before heading back to Dublin and going anti-clockwise. Right. Which has now brought me to Belfast. You mentioned in our conversation before we started there that you've climbed all the peaks as well in these areas that you've gone through. Yeah, well, you were up Donard there recently. Yeah, essentially I made some friends, wonderful people called Chris and Dominique in Wales. Right. They came to see me a few times, and Chris wanted to head up Snowdon for his birthday, or asked me to join. As you do. As you do, and I thought, oh, why not? And obviously I have a page running, and I have some amazing supporters. I didn't want to be taking a holiday from the challenge as such, so I decided to include all the highest peaks of each lands. Right. As part of the challenge. So that's just throw that in. Yeah, it's one of those things you say to the world, and then when you've said it, you sort of think,
oh no, I wish I hadn't said that. Okay, you've mentioned a page there. Explain that to us.
I've set up a page called the Pale Blue Dot.
The Pale Blue
Dot.
D-O-T.
Yeah.
Right.
It's named after a famous photograph from, I think, 96, could be 94.
Right.
Taken of Earth from 6 billion kilometres away.
Right.
The satellite Voyager.
Right.
It's the furthest away a photograph has ever been taken of Earth.
Right.
In essence, it's beautiful. There's a paragraph by the famous physicist Carl Sagan.
Right.
That sums up my way of thinking more eloquently than I ever could. It highlights how fragile everything is, basically.
Right, okay. And so you're heading north up to Portrush, and you're coming through Belfast, and you're going to head up towards Portrush and the famous Giant's Causeway and all the rest of it, and then you're going to go Malin Head, and you're going to go into Donegal. But how many miles do you reckon, roughly, that you've done so far?
To put it roughly, I can just say over 10,000.
You have walked 10,000 miles in this challenge to raise money for, name your charities.
That's 3 environmental charities,
right.
Aspects. We have Renewable World, which I've chosen for technology.
Right.
We have the Worldland Trust.
Right.
And we have RSPB. Both RSPB and Worldland Trust would both fit into the category of conservation and education. They educate people and obviously conserve a lot of land.
Right. And these charities, you've obviously made contact with them, and they know about what you're doing and all the rest of it. Okay. I believe you were interviewed by a magazine not so long ago. What was that about?
It's called Country Walking Magazine.
Right.
They have. It's really awesome, actually. They have. They've begun this project. I think that's the right word. Called 1,000 Mile Challenge, and it's to encourage people from all walks of life, no pun intended, to try and reach.
Very good.
To try and reach 1,000 miles a year. Walking is a fantastic boost for mental health, physical health, a way to appreciate nature. There's there's no negatives to getting out.
Right. Okay. Right. So that's your 3 charities, and they're environmental charities, which is close to your heart, and that's really good. So you've walked how many miles again?
It's definitely over 10,000.
10,000. Right.
Yeah.
You're walking over rugged ground.
The terrain changes. Okay. I'll use. To use Ireland and Northern Ireland so far as an example.
Yes.
90% of what I've covered has been pure. The wrong sort of pebbles. We're not talking shingle. We're talking rocks, up to big rocks, up to pointy rocks. A lot of it inaccessible to public. You'd have to cross farms, and these aren't beaches you go to visit to walk or sit on.
So difficult enough terrain.
Yeah, and that's flat.
Yeah.
That's flat terrain. And then we have things like the Southwest Coast Path, which in its entirety it's reputed to be 4.5 times the ascent of Everest. You cover something like 6 miles a day sometimes, and it feels like 20.
Right.
But then you have nice days.
Then you have nice days.
In Ireland I had sort of 8-10 hours of good sand, hard sand, at night, no torch, just light pollution.
Moonlit.
Oh, beautiful, vast open space.
So how many miles would you aim, on a good day? How many miles on a good day could you cover?
If I'm pushing myself, a maximum is going to be around 30 physically, because there's always tomorrow.
That's a lot of miles.
It is. I would prefer to do. I've only been pushing it so hard at certain periods, just to give me something to engage with, because it's such a long challenge. I'm happy with 10 to 15 a day.
How many sets of trainers or boots or whatever have you gone through already?
3.
3. Okay.
I had 2 to begin with. I had an old pair, a year old, which were in perfect condition because they're good boots, and they'd only been out when I went out specifically walking, and I brought a brand new pair, exactly the same. And I've worn through both of those, and then the couple I actually mentioned already that I made friends with surprised me with a brand new pair of boots, which is what I'm wearing now, and they'll see me through winter. So thanks if you are watching. I should, yeah. They've gone through a lot. No. The salt water is not a leather friend.
These boots are made for walking. Nancy Sinatra. I'm thinking about your walking. It's not a very lonely existence.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah. The people make it, definitely.
So you've met a few interesting buddies along the way.
Yeah, I've met some amazing people. Everybody I've met's been amazing. I don't always, via the page, which I've set up not just for my challenge, hopefully for other people that want to take on board an environmental fundraiser. I often do highlights of the week or highlights of the month, and during that I rarely have a picture of someone I've met, and the reason for that is because I meet so many people that I don't get pictures of. Some of them I don't even get the names of, and I can't do a favourites in that sense. They've all been wonderful. There's people that have been, they don't even know what challenge I'm on. They've come up to me while I'm asleep in a sleeping bag and left a cup of tea next to me, you know. So
strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people have been amazing. But that's why I'm doing this. It's because I think people are awesome. We deserve a good future. So
right. And you've seen some interesting sights in the animal and bird world, and interesting views. So, could you any highlights there?
Oh, so many.
So many, right? Good.
So many.
Right,
some of the terrain I just mentioned in a negative aspect. If you were to just sit on those stones, it's just beautiful. It's just a bit of a, to walk's not always great. But I've seen, the list is so long. The Southwest Coast Path in its entirety is almost completely just, every day is stunning. It's I hope people get an opportunity to do that. Scotland is where my heart is. My favourite place so far. A place called Colvin Sands. Just so, the list is endless. There's gems even along the southeast of England,
right.
you know, dotted along.
Yeah.
The Seven Sisters. And yeah.
So, my goodness, you're taking in. It's just gobsmacks me. This is quite amazing that somebody is actually undertaking this. This is. And so you started up at John O'Groats, and where do you hope to finish again? You'll do the circle right round Ireland.
So I literally began at Dunnet Head, which is the most northerly tip of the mainland, and I will finish at Dunnet Head.
Right, and so you've come right back up Liverpool and Glasgow, and then the Western Isles of Scotland. And up past the Mulla Kintyre and all up in there.
All the inlets.
In and outs and in and outs.
Yeah, the only cut-offs I have is I have to get to the first bridge. So when I go, trying to think of a good example, you'll know right now. The Strangford Lock.
Yeah.
So when I'm going, I won't take the ferry from Strangford to Portaferry.
Yeah, you'll walk around the whole peninsula.
But I cut myself a little bit of slack. So
right.
The coast, the true coast, what I call the true coast, there's some grey areas.
Right.
I'm as close to the sea as I can pretty much get, even if that means fighting, through fields and barbed wire.
Right. Right.
Lochs and rivers, I let myself meander and wander a bit. As long as I'm reaching it. Yeah, right. That way I take in a bit more culture too. Sometimes.
How are you funding this? Because you've got to eat,
Yeah, originally I had savings and a lot more naivety that I thought would last a lot longer than they did. But I'm terrible with money. I'm not a very sensible person. Sensible people don't do this. As I began to run out of money, obviously I did worry. But I didn't want to give up. I'd made a lot of progress, and I found work along the way.
Part-time jobs.
Yeah, which can, once you've got nothing, it can last a long time.
Right.
Whether I've wanted to accept or not, people have, helped out with a cup of tea here and there, and I've made that money last a long time.
If somebody wants to support you, how can they possibly do that financially? Say somebody in Tyrone wants to support what you're doing. How can they get money to you?
Do you mean the charities?
No, to you.
Oh, no. See, it's complicated. So sometimes you bump into someone who's another trekker, another walker.
Right.
They understand your situation, they've probably been there, and I've realised that it's a kind of pay it forward thing.
Yeah, I understand.
So, and then, I'm very much looking forward to, when this is over, surprising someone with a bacon sandwich, for example, because I know how much it's going to mean to them.
Right.
But it really, if someone knows I'm coming and they're following the page and they genuinely need a bit of work done, I'm capable of most things.
So that's the way that people follow your progress, is basically follow this page. How do we get onto that? Is that Facebook or what?
Yeah, that's a Facebook page called the Pale Blue Dot.
Pale Blue Dot,
yeah, and
Facebook.
Also for people not to worry, because I'm good at surviving. There's pretty much always about 2 weeks worth of food that I could live on in my bag. It's not necessarily pleasant, but I'll be okay.
Rations type stuff.
Yeah.
Right. How did you prepare for all of this? I'm talking about physically, because this is not for the faint-hearted.
I knew to an extent that I was choosing to do something that would be incredibly hard and would at times pretty much break me. So I didn't step into that with rose-tinted glasses. I knew it was coming, and it does come sometimes. But that's something I thought makes it worthwhile to sponsor someone. If the fittest person you know is doing a 10k run, you're probably going to think, put some effort in. It's a bit like that. But I was my fittest before I began. I had some muscle mass, and that took about 2 months to wear down, and I'm about as thin as I'll get now.
Right.
So mentally, I think I was prepared. And I still seem to be managing.
Good man, good man. Listen, Peter, all I can do is wish you all the best, and I wish you God's blessing. I'll do that. Whether you believe in God or not, I don't know. I haven't asked you. But that's as best I can do. And thank you so much for giving me this time. I know that you're done in. You're physically done in.
It's been a hard month.
You're tired.
I appreciate your time as well. I mean, getting the word out there is...
Well, I will be putting this on my wee channel, and hopefully, the word will spread. All part of your elbow, sunshine. Okay, good man, Peter.